Hey Soul Babes, welcome to the Essence Podcast. I'm your hostess, and in this podcast, through using the tools of holistic wellness, creativity, and spirituality, you will learn to liberate yourself, how to create with freedom, and you'll learn how to use your creative muscle. A lot of us have grown up with keeping our creative muscle stagnant as we continue to pick and design our lives with our logic. We use A, B, C, and D to get us to Z. What many of us will find out is that actually doesn't just work on its own. It becomes boring. It becomes this repetitiveness. And if you are listening to this podcast, you are definitely looking for a new start. You are in this place of wanting to know more about yourself, wanting to dig deeper within yourself, wanting to be in your essence. Your essence is the beautiful sparks of life, right? That's what keeps you going. It is your joy. It is your contentment. It is what keeps you alive, basically, because it's just a part of us. It's what just fills us up when there is just a hard time we are living in.
In your divine essence you shine. In your divine essence you thrive. I'm your host, Riss, and you're listening to Essence Podcast.
The creative muscle is the right side of your brain, and the logic muscle is the left side of your brain. And the majority of us, we are comfortable with understanding logic, right? Because it's easy. When we are in logic, we're technically just following what's been done. We're using the formulas that have been made. We're using the curriculum that has been taught. And when we're in our creativity, this is when we're exploring deeper of those logic thoughts. We're doing things that don't actually make sense. We're surrendering and we're being ourselves, which is our essence. So understanding that balance is key, because if we want to pave a new way for ourselves, if we want to actually create something that hasn't been done before, to create a life that is our own, then that's when we essentially need to start working out our creative muscle. Because it's using this outside of the box thinking and feeling, not what we've already felt and thought of, but thinking and feeling something greater than what we know in this moment. And this gets me to wanting to share a story. But before I share this story, I just want to be clear that I have been on this healing journey, this creative journey, this working out my creative muscle and understanding who I am from the core and how to be in my essence full time has taken 4 years. And within the first year, first and foremost, that year was like an introduction, right? I wasn't really doing much of a change my first year. I was just being introduced to the questions that I had that were popping up. So like, who am I? Where am I going? What is my life looking like? This was all during the pandemic. And by that time of my life, I had just graduated college. I was working for my boyfriend's dad at a cannabis dispensary as a social media manager. So I graduated from college with a bachelor's in television and film. And my whole life, pretty much, I don't need to share so much for you to understand this, but basically my whole life leading up to before my journey of these 4 years changing, my whole life was based off of what my parents wanted for me. What could make them happy? How can I please them, right? I've spoken about these in past episodes of rewiring the mother and father, like rewiring that part of thyself. And through that reflection of just constantly reviewing my life story, I had to adjust my lens in order for me to understand who I am from the core. So through that adjustment, I was asking myself in the beginning as an introduction, who am I in 2020? I was asking, where am I going? What is this looking like? Because I graduated college and now I'm a cannabis marketing manager. I don't know what the heck I'm doing with my life because I'm just saying yes and yes to things that are given to me. Oh, you should do this. You should, what's beneficial for other people. Of course, they're going to say that's better for me or that's an opportunity for me, which it is. There's endless amounts of opportunities. However, during that time frame, because of the pandemic, there was a pause. There was a pause for me to actually ask the question and for me to actually live through the answers. But I did not expect to live through it for 4 years. It was not part of my plan, but there is no timing to how long the healing journey takes. And while I was going through that journey of discovering and self-discovery and asking myself questions and life unfolding, there was a dream I had by like the second year of this journey. And through that idea of understanding who I am, I remember that this dream was very vivid on the path I was making. So I was a little girl in this dream, but I was also still my like older self. So there was me and then there was a little version of myself. And I am at a family party on my dad's side. And I'm looking at everyone who's there, everyone's talking and doing their thing, and I noticed a little girl in the crowd, and she's wearing a yin yang sweater jacket. I have a yin yang jacket that I got from Urban Outfitters, and it has been the iconic jacket that I love to wear over and over again because it embodies my essence. It speaks boldly. And in this dream, the little girl was wearing this jacket. And I'm watching this little girl move through the crowd because now me and my family are moving like a herd on a ranch into this gate, and we're moving along, right? And I'm watching this little girl and I'm following her with this yin yang jacket. And I'm starting to basically become one with this little girl in the yin yang jacket, which is myself. And I start to see from the perspective of myself looking at my dad and my family. And there's this nice paved road. It's so, crisp and clean and smooth. And I see my dad in a car and I see him with my family members. And he's asking me, are you going to get in? Like, come on, let's go. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to get in the car. I'm going to take another route. And he's like, why? Why aren't you getting in the car? And I'm like, no, trust me, I'm going to take this other route. And he was kind of like sad, but he let me go. And I gave him a hug and he gave me his credit card. And I took it and I left on this road. And in my dream, dreams are weird. You're like, for example, in my dream right now that I'm talking about, I was a car, but I was also like a person. So it was like, I felt like a car that was moving, like going a little faster and be able to go over bumps, but I felt like I was also like walking and moving. So it was a bit of this driving, moving, basically momentum that was happening. And it was a rocky road. Like it was literally so rough that I was like, whoa, did I choose this path correctly? Like, why am I here? I'm like almost falling over the ledge. There's people zooming around me. There's people coming towards me. And I'm like, what the heck? They're moving so fast. And like, this road is really dangerous. And I kind of just like went through the road. And as soon as I crossed the road, I'm basically where my mom is. I meet my mom in this dream as well. And we're in this house, and I like to see houses as being this representation of our inner world, of like what's going on internally. And while witnessing my mom in this house, there was like slugs everywhere. It was like kind of gross in this house. So I pack my suitcase and I'm going somewhere with my mom and my brothers, and we're at this theme park. I can't recall everything that happened during this theme park, but what I'm feeling from what I remember, it was just a moment of like leaving a house and then going to this amusement park and then being able to go to another home, and all that stuff that I saw, the slugs and everything that made the house look gross, it was gone. So I started unpacking. My mom starts unpacking. And we start wearing these go-go outfits. And then we tried on a different outfit. And it was like this jean outfit, like all jean. It was like some 70s looking outfit. And I was like vibing. And my mom and I were like exchanging looks. And we were looking like twins and all this stuff. And to fast forward now to how I'm implementing this is that the more that I was analyzing that dream, and it's so funny because this was a dream that I wanted to speak about like on the very first episode when I was starting Essence Podcast, but now I feel called to share it as it is for what it is now. And this dream really is that representation of leaving the smooth path that our family curates for us, right? They have made a path for us to be able to drive on it as well. Depending on where our life is at, we may or may not still be driving on that path, right? We may or may not still be listening to what our parents are asking of us. And essentially in this dream, I had chose to let myself go down a rocky path. I chose to let myself build a new path. And what I see my father being, he is that masculine figure. He is that masculine identity of which I embodied at a young age. And because he has been that provider for me, he has been that protector for me in my life to a certain extent. Fathers aren't perfect. Mothers aren't either. But, depending on where our relationship is with our mother and father, it changes and it varies. But for example, in this dream, what I saw my father being, which he has always been in my life, is a provider. He's always provided financially for me, though he may not have been there in other ways. Financially, he had been my provider. And what I had seen is that he provided me with the funds to go on this road in my dream. In real life, of course, I did not take his credit card or anything while I started this journey. But essentially, I felt secured by the masculine to partake on this journey. And seeing the road ahead, there was people on it, but it wasn't as beautiful as I expected it to be. It wasn't smooth. We weren't driving in cars all together. It was kind of just solo people coming back and forth and almost driving off the cliff, almost going crazy and losing control. That's essentially what the road to creativity and creating a new path looks. It doesn't look perfect. It doesn't look organized. It doesn't look put together and structured because it's a creative path. It is A, Y, X, O, then Z. It's not A, B, C, D. It's just a crazy movement. And that is essentially what you will pick up while you're on your adventure to understanding your creativity, is understanding that that road is rocky. It has moments where you're going to trip and fall. It has moments where it looks like you're going to fall off a cliff and die, but you're not. Like, you're taking these chances of growing and making something that's you more beautiful and alive by going through that rocky mountain. So when I get to the motherly aspect of things, this is more of like a personal thing that I have with my mom. But before that, coming to the house situation, the house is, again, what represents our inner world. That's what a lot of dreamers have been able to unpack, is that our dream world, our house in that dream world is what's inside of our intuition, what's inside of us, and not in our intuition, but inside of our psyche. And that's essentially what I saw, was that there was slugs and it was slimy, and this, I didn't want to be in this house. So we're packing up this space of leaving a structure of a home to go to this amusement park. And I'm there with my brothers and my mom. And I'm packing things. That is essentially packing up what is things that are serving you within the psyche, within the subconscious mind, and leaving behind what is not serving you, which is that icky gooiness that we tend to carry of other people's words, of what we think about ourselves, and so on. So leaving that house and going to amusement park, amusement park, yeah. I'm going to amusement park this week in April. This is when I'm recording this. I'm going to Disneyland, and amusement parks are just this place of getting away, right? From not society. Well, you're in society still, but like getting away from this like reality. you're in this place of like, whoa, anything goes, because imagination is just like full of fun and play. And that's essentially what was in my dream. But then we're going back home, and this home isn't as dirty and isn't as funky as we had left it to be. And I'm unpacking in this new home with my mom. And this is where everyone's relationship with their mom is different. However, for my mom and I, we have this connection that is very similar. She started her healing journey just the same time as mine. And basically, because of her introducing me to tuning forks and vibrational sound therapy and crystals and understanding energy, we unraveled that together. So my journey with my mom has always been this like kinship. It's been this soul contract that we've had together, so niche together that we've been able to move and unpack together. And the 70s outfits that I imagined were my essence. They were me in its essence because I love disco. I feel I've definitely lived a life as a discoer in the 70s. To put a little note in this of the 70s journey, I truly do believe that I may have overdosed in the 70s. I I truly believe, yes, we have different lives that we live. And there's some that you're able to see and feel and maybe see a scar of, or maybe even feel in your heart like, this is, why am I into this? But this is like what I love to do. And that's a part of your essence too, you know? There's just so many things that make you who you are from so many lifetimes, even from this one. And just having that reveal of embodying my essence and sharing those outfits with my mom definitely comes to show not only that communion that I definitely do have with my mom in person, but also the communion of the feminine. The feminine is where creativity is able to thrive. The feminine is the actual creator. I mean, it works with the masculine to actually create. But the idea that when you have this aha moment, when you have a vision, that is all coming from your feminine. That is coming from your intuition, from your heart center, where you're feeling these high vibrational sense of beingness. It all connects to the feminine. It connects to the heart center. And through that journey of discovering self, you will see that your masculine is to be on board with your feminine on taking a route that is different, that doesn't look the same as what you expect other people's to look like. And that is something I've definitely learned along the way of this essence journey, is understanding that you are taking a journey that is yours, not somebody else's. So when it even comes to the people that inspire you, that you follow on Instagram, that you're friends with in person, there isn't a certain extent, right, that we have and we look at them and we're like, this is awesome. Like, I want to live this life. I want that to be me. We get this spark, right? And then we start following them. But then there becomes this part of our lives when we are working on ourselves to get where we want to go. And we're probably not seeing the same result that they got, or we're probably seeing that we are getting a bit jealous. We're getting a little bit envious because maybe there's a part of us that is still holding on to this old self and holding a grudge on that. We have not actually made progression in the way that we wanted to. So, envy and jealousy can be signs of us having to make a turn, having to actually walk down that rocky road and take some time getting uncomfortable, because a lot of what keeps us comfortable is what keeps us stagnant, right? Like, nobody wants to keep on working and getting into this nitty grittiness, especially if we have little voices within our head of not only our own subconscious beliefs, but beliefs and limiting truths that have been passed down to us. That is like the toxicity and the poison that gets us every time. As soon as we take a step up, we are sliding back downhill because we are hearing something in our psyche tell us that, what is this all for? And believe me, it still happens to me. Still going through this journey, making this podcast and getting messy with it and letting this episode be that messy, letting it be that in flow is exactly the example that I want to show you, is that showing up is everything, and but motivating your masculine to still show up for the feminine, even though it may not always just make sense or be in structure. That's the part where we have to be able to allow our masculine to just be there. Just be there. Just support. Be a provider. That's all we need for the feminine to continue to thrive, for the feminine to continue moving and grooving in its truth and its wholeness. And that is essentially what gets us to the top, the tippity top of who we want to be, embodying ourselves from the core. So I hope this message finds you well on taking that rocky road, on making sure that you don't just stick to what logic has to say, but start to question things and start to move into, what is my creative self wanting to create? And play with those ideas. You'll get a sense. I know this happens to me a lot, is when I am creating something and then there will be a part of me that's like, you've already done this. You've already created this. And then I will tend to get a little frustrated on myself. But in those points of frustration, surrender, because that's when we're pushing too hard to control it, right? But we are to surrender to what the creatrix within us wants to make. And it may not look, again, logically how we expect it to look, but to surrender on the weirdness of it, right? The one that's like, what? Am I sure? Am I doing this? Or what's happening here? That's when we know, like, okay, let's take a chance. Let's take a chance on that weirdness, on that weird calling, on what we're feeling, and let that be the move we're going to make. So I hope, again, this message finds you well, Soul Babe, and that you are able to take on your essence just as you are, accepting who you are, and then building upon that. Taking a dance with life, taking a few steps back, and surrendering to the moment just as much as you are working through the moment. If you would like to hear more about being in your essence, please be sure to subscribe on YouTube or follow on Spotify and Apple Podcast. And if you would like to see more content and know more about Riss and the journey of being in your essence, follow me at Essence of Riss on TikTok and Instagram. And I'll see you in the next one.